The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, SAS Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
Hello, I'm Dale Leftwich with Real Agriculture. Today I'm with Shawn Senko, agronomy specialist with the Canola Council. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Good, thanks.
So today we're out here in a canola field. We're actually in a field of standing canola. It's getting very late in the year, and one of the things we're trying to determine is just how to proceed with canola harvest on years when it gets late and the moisture stays up. So Shawn, this is a field of standing canola. What kind of things go into your decision-making process in trying to determine what to do with a field like this?
I just take a good look at the field, see is there any green growth yet in it. How long has it been standing? Has it had any pre-harvest applications to it? Just deciding if it's ready to cut. Are you going to be able to cut the whole thing, or do you maybe have to leave patches out when you're cutting something like this?
So do you have concerns about frost when you're looking at a field like this? It's getting fairly late in the year. We've actually had a little frost already. In terms of green seed and that kind of stuff, are you still rolling it out and trying to determine where you're at with that?
It's pretty tough at this point of the year. If you've had frost already, you'd have to get above 20% seed moisture to reactivate any enzymes if they even will reactivate. So at this point, rolling for green seed we're kind of past that stage. We're at the point now where if it's dry enough to harvest it off, you pretty much need to take it off.
And what about the ease of going through a combine, standing canola like this? I guess you've probably already determined what kind of equipment you have and how it works. What kind of things do you see when people are combining standing canola late in the year like this?
Yeah, if you've had a frost, it does tend to help if you don't have that green moisture anymore. Like I say, sometimes it makes a difference. Has it had any pre-harvest application of any products on it to help it along? Once you've had the frost, it can go through quite a bit easier. And most guys who've done some straight cutting have figured out the combine settings and maintained their combine and made sure it's in straight cutting order, I guess.
So when you're in a field like this, if it's swathed, you generally are just swathing through everything. But here you've got some choices. There are places that actually have more weeds in them than canolas. So when you're driving the combine and looking at where you're at, what kind of choices are you kind of making around that?
It depends on what your moisture's at and what you're going to be doing with the canola. If you're taking it off, it's already higher moisture and you're planning on trying to store it and hold it for a while, I'd be definitely going around anything that looks a bit weedy or a bit green. It's that area in the bin that's going to cause you issues. Like you can have higher moisture canola that you cool down that can sit for some time, but if you get those pockets that have green weeds in them or even higher moisture, that can cause you issues pretty fast. So I'd be going around that for now. Unless you've got plans to dry the entire load yourself, or you've got a quick market for it that's willing to take it and dry it down, then you can be a bit less selective and take some more of those areas through.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about once you've got it combined and you've like what the moisture content is, and then what are some of your options around storage to make sure that you don't put it in the bin and then have it spoil on you.
Well, we've got some cooler weather now, so storage time and capacity has a lot to do with both temperature and moisture. So, if you've got higher moisture canola, it's a good idea to bring that temperature down, put it on air, bring it down to a lower temperature. It'll store better, but even I got to caution, anything that's tough canola or above dry is still always going to be a bit of a danger. So it's best to rotate that grain, even when you're aerating it and drying it. If the canola is warmer than the ambient air, you can have some condensation inside the bin, and after a week or so that'll tend to start causing spoilage to that area. If you mix that back in by turning in the bin, you can save some of that. And
so one of the things that happens is you put something on air and you cool it down, but if it's kind of tough, then you will start to develop channels in your bin where the air goes through. So it's when you were talking about cycling the bin, that's another concern I think, is that the air is not getting to all parts of the bin, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different air systems out there, different bin sizes. You can have different levels of chaff and in the canola. So yeah, for sure, it can take the path of least resistance. So I mean, you could be drying certain channels and not others. So that's why it's important to pull some of that out, rotate it, and just mix that grain again and get a good uniform sample.
So the other thing, I guess, is that you really have to have a relationship with your buyer. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what you're going to be doing with this. Are they going to take it in a few weeks and dry it down for you? Is your plan to dry it? You really got to plan for your combine. What are your options for what are you going to do with this crop at that point? So yeah, just looking, keeping in contact and knowing what you can do with that crop you've harvested.
Okay, good, Shawn. I think we're going to go over to a field of swath canola then and just talk a little bit about that.
Sounds good.
So Shawn, here we are in front of some swath canola. Can you just talk about how you decide if you've got some swath or you're going to swath? How do you decide what your fields are which field you're going to actually attack with your combine?
Again, it comes down to what you've got a market for. What grain you can move. So you look at the moisture level on each one and see what the sample is. The other big one's the weather. What's coming up next. If you can get at the swath stuff and pick it up while it's dry, and the standing stuff will dry sooner after an event. You might be better that way, but if you're looking at a heavy snowfall coming, you may want to get that standing stuff off before it's pushed down to the ground and you have a hard time picking it up. So it's really looking at what's coming up in the next few days for weather and what you've got left standing out there.
So you really have to judge a lot of different things at the same time. You don't want the swaths to freeze to the ground. You don't want the standing stuff to be knocked down by heavy snow. So you really have to pay close attention to exactly like where you're at.
Yeah, and there's never a perfect answer for anything. It's kind of your best guess on what's going to get you the most crop off before the snow flies, or we all hope we get it all off, but what's going to keep you rolling the most acres, and it's looking ahead at that forecast and taking your best guess at what's going to keep you rolling and what you're going to be able to move for grain. If you've got the ability to move some higher moisture canola and it's the possibility of drying it, maybe you want to go in the swaths that are a bit higher moisture and take them off first and try to get the drier standing stuff off later, but it all depends in the end.
So the standing stuff definitely dries faster though, right?
Yeah, typically, a couple days after a rain or snowfall event, if you get a bit of sun and some wind, it tends to dry down faster than a swath. It's usually a day or two later than that.
And then the other thing is the pod shatter resistance that you have on some of these varieties is different than what it was a few years ago.
There's definitely less risk in standing canola than it would have been a few years ago. So letting it stand isn't nearly as risky.
So but that depends on to make sure that you do have something that, because different varieties still react differently. Some will shatter more easily than others.
Yeah, and at this point in the season, you just kind of want to walk in there, see are you starting to lose into shatter yet? Maybe even bat it around a bit and just see how well it's standing up to the conditions. If you're starting to lose seed and it seems to be shelling fairly easy, that might change your choice. You may want to go into that standing stuff and get it off before you lose some to wind.
So I guess the point is that there are a lot of different things to look at when you're trying to determine what to do, but a big part of it is what are you going to do with the canola after you've got a combine.
Exactly. Yeah. Get those good samples. Keep in contact with your buyer who you're selling it to and see what their plans are for it and when they can take it. And just double checking. We've got some really cold conditions here, so sometimes your hand sampler might not be 100% accurate. So always double checking those samples and making sure that your moisture levels where you think it's at.
So that is double check. Take the moisture sampler that you have, maybe, and then take that same sample into an elevator and maybe calibrate the sampler that you have at the farm.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you an idea of how close it is to the actual sample you're taking to the buyer.
And then make sure that the buyer, some of them are in a better position to buy stuff that has a little bit of green seed in it than others are, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You've got all the specs: moisture, green, the blending capability, what you've got on farm maybe, or what you possibly hauled in already that can be paper blended in. So just keeping in contact, and that can help you decide what you should be taking off.
Okay, I just want to thank Shawn Senko for being with us today here on Real Agriculture and just talking about all of the different options that you have to go through when you're trying to determine what to do with combining and when it gets to be late in the season. Thanks again, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you too.